every company needs marketing and every person has a type of marketing. The second thing is marketing is more than what you see. Marketing is about sentiment, how people feel. And I think those two things are probably the biggest opportunities for those companies that are not pouring into the marketing teams. It is not just about the logo. It's not about brand colors. It's not about a slogan. Marketing is more than that.
You're listening to The People of Work, the podcast that dives into the real stories behind what people do for a living and how work shapes who we are. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The People of Work with your host, Amy Graves. And I'm really excited to have a good friend of mine and neighbor who lives just a few doors down join me today for our conversation. Welcome, Hollin Hart, the marketing communications leader at Cummins. And again, good friend of mine. I'm really excited to dig in and learn all about Hollin's work journey, her story, and she's also a new mom to a new baby girl. So we're going to talk a little bit about that juggle between motherhood and career. All of us working moms can relate to that. So I look forward to learning a little bit about that too. So welcome, Hollin.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here and kind of dive into some questions that hopefully will add value to the listeners.
Yeah, I know your story will add value to the listeners. So let's dig in. Let's talk about what the work conversation what it looked like at home for you in the very beginning. So were your parents talking to you about what kind of job you were going to get as you were older? What was your first job? Talk to me about that dynamic at home in the early stages.
My first job I remember having when I was 15. So I'm born and raised from South Bend, Indiana. I worked in the bookstore at Notre Dame University. And that was my first kind of paying job. But then prior to that, I did babysitting. And I say that because that was, I would call full time. That was kind of like my first experience into almost like an entrepreneurship, kind of creating your own relationships and then working at the bookstore at 15. And I would say from a conversation standpoint, it was expected that I have a job, not necessarily at 15, but that was something that I aspired to. And then just observing in my household, my mother is an educator. My father, he is blue collar worker. Also my grandparents who were heavily involved in my formative years of raising myself. They also were hard workers. My grandfather was a bricklayer and my grandmother worked in the print shop at the local community college. And so being focused on not only education and being career oriented were heavily a part of my matriculation as an adult.
Was the focus like going to college and getting a job, or was the focus just get out of high school and get a job, or was it kind of open to whatever appealed to you?
Yeah, I think because my grandfather grew up in the trades and that was very successful for him, I think it was open. It was open to whatever I wanted to be, whether that was formal training, trade, call it 4-year college, even if it was a community college avenue. So I'm really grateful for that opportunity to explore on my own. However, it was use your skills. So have a job and use your skills how you can use them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's talk about that. So you are working at the bookstore, you're babysitting. So you've got, you're learning some of those foundational skills. What made you decide to go to Ball State? And when you made that decision, did you have a specific major in mind?
I would say there was a couple of things that led me to that decision. The first thing is my mom encouraged me to connect and to talk with people. And so I babysat for a lawyer. She was a lawyer and the husband was a stay-at-home dad, but worked part-time as a librarian. And so I was able to see a very unique, non-traditional route to not only a household, but then also have connections into unique roles and jobs. So I met with them, got to learn more about that. In my high school, we had a series where we had professionals come in and speak to us about their jobs. And I remember in my government relations class, there were students from Notre Dame University that came on site and kind of shared with us what they did. And they were lawyers and some were in marketing, and never knew that that's where I would end up now. But I listened to them and I got really, really inspired. And you'll start to see a theme here. And then lastly, I would say just being heavily involved in sports. I was a athlete. I played soccer, I did basketball, and I ran track. And so not only is that an interest of mine, that's also a background I had. And so I was heavily involved in like being very quick to be agile, understanding all the things. And so when I decided to go to college and apply to schools, I didn't have time to apply to all these different schools. So I had to really narrow it down. I applied to 3 schools, and Ball State was one that I got accepted to. Being a mother of an educator, Ball State is a teacher's college, so that was encouraged. Also, my family is very important to me, so I wanted to stay close to home. And so Ball State wasn't. So I applied there. And how I decided to declare major of marketing was through some of those conversations and engagement. Ultimately, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a sports marketing lawyer. I was babysitting for a lawyer, learned a lot. I loved everything. I mean, I was on the track to go to law school. Those students that came from Notre Dame that came and spoke to us, they were lawyers, and it just really spoke to me and something that I always wanted to do. And I wanted to be in sports marketing. So that's how I started off marketing. And then when I realized how much law school was and how much time it was going to take after undergrad, I almost talked myself out of it. And that was probably a little bit of imposter syndrome. I did take courses for law school. I did take the LSAT, and I didn't score as well. And I thought that was just my divine way of, hey, this isn't the path for you. Nevertheless, that's how I came down to marketing. And I will say that that was one of the best decisions that I've made. I had
That's great.
grew a lot of connections and relationships in business college that I just felt like that was where I should be at the time.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, in preparation for this interview, I spent a little time on LinkedIn, and I was aware of some of the volunteer work that you do in the city, the Girl Scouts and some other things. But I learned that you were actually on more boards than I did know about. So I'm curious, did you volunteer or participate in clubs and stuff like that as a high schooler and or college that kind of already prepared you to do some of this volunteer work as a working professional?
Yes. So I was in the National Honor Society. A part of sports and a part of, attaining scholarships. So my mom was a single mother. It was heavily ingrained that you do for others, you uplift, you give back. Also, my faith is a very important aspect of how I pursue my professional values, and servant leadership showed up a lot. And so giving back not only I would say is a professional benefit, but it's ingrained in my DNA. And so, yes, being a part of Girl Scouts of Central Indiana, being on that board. I also have been a part of Meals on Wheels in Hancock County. I was on that board. And other ways that I volunteer, I was on Indie Black Professionals, National Urban League. I am very intentional about how I spend my time. So those aren't a check of the box for me. However, I feel very passionate about giving back, but then also it's a way to connect with your community and just really stay connected and grounded. So I love giving back. Like I said, I'm very intentional with my time because there's a lot of things that are offered, but you can't do everything. It's molded me in more ways than not.
Let's talk about your career in marketing. So when you left Ball State, you had a fresh new degree in marketing. What was your first move right after college?
Yeah, so I actually jumped into sales at Monarch Beverage, and I was hired through a sales development program. They came on campus, recruited, and it was by far the best opportunity. I got to learn a lot, not only about the city. So like I said, I'm from South Bend, went to Ball State and moved to Indianapolis with this opportunity. It's kind of like how everyone should start off in hospitality. I think everyone should start off in sales. I think it's whether or not you think you're good at it or not, it helps you understand people, it helps you understand yourself and organization skills.
And the business that you're working
Oh,
for
yeah,
too. I mean, what better way to
absolutely.
really understand your product or service value than spending a little time in sales, right?
Hit the nail on the head. And I
Yeah,
never would have connected to that degree why sales and marketing go hand to hand. But being
sure.
on that side was very important. And then also just learning about myself, right? Fresh out of college, you're learning about what is your style? What do you bring to the table? What do you need to improve? You can be book smart, but you need to have that be applicable in the workplace. So I would say that was a very eye-opening experience, but it was fun. So I worked in sales when we brought the Super Bowl to Indianapolis. So it was still connecting some of the fun entertainment things that I loved. Everywhere that there was something to celebrate was Monarch. So we were downtown at the Circle. We were doing things in Broad Ripple, any major event in Motor Speedway. I got to be a part of events that I would have never had the opportunity to do so. And so I think those are things I can look back on in my career, and they're full circle moments for things that I'm passionate about, whether it's sports, whether it's being a lawyer, whether it's volunteering, have always shown up in my job, even if it's not part of my job description.
I love that because, that's kind of the crux of this show is so much about the pivot, or that there's not only one path to get to where you want to be. So the fact that you, I mean, obviously had a passion for sports, you were an athlete, as a young person, but also you really wanted to connect the work that you do in your career to sports. And you were able to do that simply by, volunteering opportunities and having that kind of first position at Monarch. It's just interesting to me that somehow it all ties together. I think without any effort, certainly you were seeking out those very specific experiences and opportunities. But I mean, it's a nice like combination, right? Of marketing, some sports, and certainly volunteerism, which is important to you too.
There's been a lot of things, like I said, I've been a part of, and one of those things have been a book club. And I would hands down tell anybody one of the most impactful books that I've read was Lean In. I know that sounds super cliche. Everybody was doing a book club, but okay, I love to read. I've always loved to read. But one of the biggest quotes that stood out, it's like one of those books you need to read like almost every year, every other year to remind you, but it's like your career is a jungle gym, not a ladder. And I think once I really not only read that on words and paper, but lived it and felt it of saying it can be crazy on the outside, but it's still all interconnected. And you can still rise and then you can come down and then start again. I think that's where I kind of was reminded of, okay, the woman that wrote this book is saying this and look how far she's come. But then also you can do a lot of things. Your career, your life doesn't have to be one dimensional. And once I started to be open to that, to say like, I may not have a 5-year plan, or I may have a 5-year plan, but it can still all be relevant and connected because I'm living it. That's when I think things in my confidence started to open up, just how I was, building my network and bringing out the energy. It changed.
I love that for you. That's great. Let's talk about that jungle gym of work and how you landed and spent 7 years at Cummins. You're still at Cummins as the marketing communications leader there. Tell me what you've been doing for 7 years at Cummins, and particularly in the role that you're in now.
Let me first be very transparent. I did not know anything about Cummins before I joined. Like I said, I've moved to Indy early at the first stages of my career and had no idea about it. So the headquarters are in Columbus, Indiana, and Cummins is a power solutions company. And so when I joined or heard about Cummins, it was through my network. So through my sorority sister who worked here, and they were looking to grow some people in the sales and marketing function. I applied. Cummins, just the insight, is very competitive to get in. So super blessed and grateful for the opportunity, but it's a phenomenal company. They really uplift and develop, and they're a global company. So there's so many different opportunities that you can leverage. They highly encourage not only networking, that's a part of like a cultural, I would say, a value, connecting with others, while also moving around. So if there's other things that you want to explore, if you want to be, if you're an engineer, but then you want to go to product management, all the things, they encourage that. Not only do they encourage that, I've lived it. So I came in starting in a marketing sales functional excellence program, and then quickly moved over customer facing solely. So I was an account manager. And through that customer relationship management, I mean, it was sales, right? Like I wasn't selling the product, but I was in the crux between sales and marketing of focusing on the customer, sustaining our product, upselling, relationship management, all the things. And so stayed on that side for a little bit. That was probably a fast and furious way to understand the company, because you're dealing with so many different functions, finance, engineering, product management, quality, all of the things. And your product can be not only domestic, but it can be global. Now I'm in marketing. And so I will always tell people marketing is at the core of what I love to do. But what comes natural is I understand people. And so when I understand people, I want to make their lives easier. So I'm identifying solutions
Mm-hmm.
for their needs. And I think that's where the sales and marketing overlap. And so I serve on the pickup side of the business. So Dodge Ram pickup trucks, if anyone knows about those, some of them have a Cummins engine. And so my job has been supporting, making sure people know about that engine in the Dodge Ram pickup. We just launched a new product this year. So that is super exciting. So go to your Dodge Ram dealership and
Okay.
check it out. But that's what I do. I help market that product, make sure people know about it and understand some of that opportunities and how they can get it.
So recently you have returned to the office from maternity leave. So Hollin's got three beautiful, amazing children, Grayson, Harper, and little baby girl Tony. So talk to me about that transition back to work. I'm just curious about not so much the logistical stuff. You're going in a couple of days a week. I know there's like a hybrid schedule there that you're working, but just how you manage a very demanding role for a global company like Cummins while juggling motherhood of three small children.
Without going down a rabbit hole of things you probably hear in other podcasts or other people, I would probably boil it down to three things. The first thing is my husband, having a really great partner, having a really great best friend in house that is supportive of not only me, but is an active, present parent. That is a game changer because how I show up at home, being on one accord, feeling whole, feeling supported at home is a distinct reflection of what you can get right now. What help I get in the middle of the night, what help I get with pickup. And I wouldn't even say help because we're a team, we're a
Right, of
partnership, but
course.
that is a reflection. So to make this applicable across the board to people that maybe don't have kids or are not married, I would just say how you stand up at home in the practices, in the wellness boundaries that you put up at home, that is going to be indicative of your success at work. I don't care who you are, what you believe, what role you're in, unless you have that framework built up at home to be your best self, you won't be successful or sustainable at work. So that'll be my
Right.
first thing. My husband is how I've navigated this. The second thing is being agile. I am a type A to the T. I write the list, I write the
Yeah.
meals. We have skylight calendars. I have a paper calendar. I have notebooks everywhere. I'm type A, but I have to be agile in this season of life, or else it doesn't do anyone justice. Because what I've learned is as much as I think that I'm in control, I am not. If a fire drill happens at school and I have to go pick them up, I can't say I'm just going to do it. Wasn't on my agenda today, so I'm not going to do it. Or if
Right.
I get sick or if the CEO of the company emails me and says, I need this marketing plan done today, I'm going to be agile. And so being very planful, but then also having that room to adjust and waking up with an open mind of if this comes my way, I'm going to attack it with agility. That will make you successful as well.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I think energy. And I know that's a really random word, and people can say that's a feel good word, but I would say showing up with the right energy and the mindset. Like I said, my faith is a huge asset and aspect of how I show up. And Joyce Myers has this book called The Battlefield of the Mind.
So,
And I would say, once I learned that that's how what I think is what comes out, whether it's in action, whether it's in energy, people are attracted to energy. People don't want to work with mean people. People don't want to work with people that are grumpy. At the end of the day, you think about a manager and employee relationship, it's a two-way street. A manager can only be a manager if they have someone reporting to them. No one wants to report to someone that's cray cray. So
right.
at the end of the day,
Right.
I would say once I learned that giving and exuding the natural optimistic energy, the goofy, I'm always joking, energy that I can give is going to just make things so much lighter because I'm not a brain surgeon. I'm never going to be that. So once I learned that I can probably take it down a notch, that everyone would be enjoying the energy that I give. So I would say my husband being agile and just really showing up with a really good attitude.
That's such good advice. Okay, we can wrap up now. You just gave so many gold nuggets. No. We can't. We got to keep going. So tell me, Holland, about one of the biggest challenges you have faced in your work life.
Oh gosh, biggest challenge. I'm going to reference another book, which is really wild that I'm keep referencing books, but there's a book by Chandra Rhimes that's called The Year of the Yes. And it's all about saying yes to yourself. I think that's been hard for me, and not because anyone else has positioned themselves. It's a mental barrier that I have sometimes. And so I think one of the challenges specifically at Cummins, I'm not an engineer. I'm never going to be an engineer. That is not a passion of mine whatsoever. But I work with engineers. We're a power solutions company. We're a manufacturing company. And so
Right.
one of the things that anyone in marketing across Cummins has to do is build that rapport to say, although I'm not an engineer, I have my value as this. I can lend this. One of the things that I put on my resume, or what I talk about when I talk about myself, is I'm a translator. So I can translate technical engineering, very complex things. So I can untangle that jungle gym and make it a ladder, because I can do it from, all different ways. And that has been something that not only did I have to overcome as imposter syndrome, but then also have to rebrand as a strength and say, I know I'm not this, but I am 100% that. And I am that woman that can translate anything technical, that can make something hard feel light, make something that feels icky and chaotic feel like a fun project, because that's what I can do. And once I learned how to talk about that, it became my superpower. And I love that to this day, that I can be in a room with the highest person at the seat of the table and not feel uncomfortable, embarrassed, nervous, or be at this cross-functional table of product launch and say, all right, this is what we need to do, and share my voice and speak up.
What do you attribute that to? What do you attribute that comfortability to, walking into the room with the CEO, the COO, and having that confidence in yourself? What do you attribute all that to?
Because I'm an only child, there's nothing that I haven't probably seen or said to myself that anybody can say to me for the first time. I'm very accountable and very real. I think growing up as an only child, you're the responsible one. You're the one that has to pick up toys behind yourself. You have to answer the questions of why something didn't get done. You have to be, the first, the middle, and the last child. And so you take on a lot of different hats, and you learn to speak up and to communicate very early on, but you also learn to observe, right? You're always connecting the dots. And I think from an early stage, I was deemed the talkative one. I was deemed the busybody. And from that, I just felt like I grew tough skin, but then I also just grew like, hey, it's only me. So I don't have anything to lose, because I already started off as one. So I'm going to end as one.
So, what's something that people might be surprised to know about marketing? I work in HR. I know enough about marketing to be dangerous, but which isn't a whole lot. When I think about marketing, my first thought always goes to like social media marketing or generating leads for sales teams, that sort of thing. So, tell me something that's maybe unique that listeners would want to understand about marketing.
I'm going to say two things. I think the first thing is every company needs marketing, and every person has a type of marketing. So I would say that. The second thing is marketing is more than what you see. Marketing is about sentiment, how people feel. And I think those two things are probably the biggest opportunities for those companies that are not pouring into the marketing teams, as far as either creating their own teams, giving the financial bandwidth to that, but then also only seeing marketing as one dimensional. Like I said, it is not just about the logo. It's not about brand colors. It's not about a slogan. Marketing is more than that. It's about your brand and how you make people feel, what people are thinking of you, and how the community is thinking about you. I would say one thing I love about the company you work for is you guys sponsor the PGA women. You have a woman that you sponsor on the PGA.
We do.
And I think that is amazing, because you all are extending your brand. It's not just about technology, but you focus on women, and then you're focusing on a way that people network. Golf is a huge connector and a huge way that people network. And so I think that is an evolution, and you're really connecting the dots of what your company stands for. And it's in STEM. Women are starting to increase the percentage of how they engage in STEM. And what better way? And I think that's really awesome. So I would say, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
misconception that sentiment is not connected to marketing when it is.
You co-created an organization, I think, here in Indy. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So it was called Indie Black Millennials. It has since transformed into Indie Black Professionals. And so there was me, a woman named Diana, and also Boomy. And we all came together. And Boomy was the brainchild of it and said, "Hey, I want to start this. Would you guys be a part of it?" And it has since grown. And in 2020, 2021, I kind of stepped away as I was reevaluating some personal things. But
Mhm.
it was a networking organization for Black millennials, and we saw that there was a gap in the community, and also wanted to create something that was fun. It allowed people to connect in different spaces, because Indy has become a transplant city. A lot of people are coming from all over. Boomy and
Right.
I worked at Salesforce, and they were seeing that. Salesforce, a global company, me working at Cummins, the same thing. And so that was a great experience. I really attribute the growth to that to Boomy. He is a natural connector, but it was a really great way to see how people will really pour into building up young professionals in the city.
How do you handle this tug of war? I call it a tug of war because I feel like it's a tug of war for me sometimes. We've talked about this, the juggle with career and motherhood. And I actually just want to go back and reference how much I appreciate the comment you made about it being a jungle gym and not a ladder, because there have been so many times, even in my own career, where I've taken a pause and very purposely not tried to climb that ladder and said, it's time to pause. I'm going to part time. And I also remember thinking, is this going to hurt my career long term? Am I going to regret taking a pause? Of course, I look back and I have zero regrets. It was a very good decision. But even now, I think it's just that constant tug of feeling like you've got to be, you said this earlier, you've got to be in all the places, you've got to do all the things. It truly is a juggle. I don't know that I ever would say there is a work-life balance. I don't know that I subscribe to that really, but I'm interested in your thoughts on that, especially since you very recently went back to work.
I love this question. I think I've noodled on it for quite some time. So for those of you that don't know, like Amy said, I have a 6-year-old. His name is Grayson. I have a 2-year-old who's Harper, and I have a 4-month baby whose name is Tony. And as I've navigated being, mid-level career professional, I've thought about that. I've had and seen individuals that have done the pendulum, right? Have dove in and not slowed down. And then I've had people that have cut back. Cummins, there's been multiple individuals at Cummins that have changed their work schedule to being either part-time or doing 50%. And I think that's a really amazing opportunity that companies can win, is to be open to how parents return to work. Because like I said, for me, how I show up and what I'm successful in at my house is how I'm going to give at work. But starting off with this foresight of whatever is for me is going to be for me. And you and I have talked about that in many different
That's right.
settings, but
Mhm.
I have to be okay with knowing that I'm not in control other than doing value added work, giving my best energy and best, perspective and attitude. And then also saying, "Hey, what can I do more to add value?" And I think once I started doing that, all these other things that just felt like unnecessary. And I think I felt the weight of that after COVID. During COVID, I worked in a customer facing role and we had to stop travel. And
Right.
obviously the world stopped travel, but then we did, all of the organizations you're a part of, reevaluated if they were running, how we were meeting. And when I stopped doing all the things and realized what I was doing and how burnt out I was, I said, "Oh, I need to be very wise about what I say yes to." And
Mhm.
even to this day, I just started to feel like even though I show up from 8 to 5, my time cannot be filled with things during the 8 to 5, or else I'm going to exhaust myself from my 5 to 9, which is at home. And
Right.
so, how I've navigated that is saying, if I don't want to be somewhere, if I don't want to do something, don't do it. That's the first thing. Like if it feels like a burden to do it, volunteering, nonprofit, sitting on a board, taking on extra projects at work, I need to just be real honest and say, this is not for me. Because anytime you get involved with that, it's not going to give your best work and people are going to feel that energy. So that's the first thing, is how I evaluate that work-life balance if it doesn't serve me. The second thing is, if I come home and I'm just depleted and I can't transition, if, it's just been a difficult team to work on, then it's not for me because I'm not giving my best self. And then thirdly, I think mentorship. It's so important to have a mentor or mentors that come in and see things and say, hey, you should join this. I think this is really value added. Or have you considered this opportunity? I think that lens and that foresight can help you identify gaps that you probably wouldn't have, but then also be connected. Shout out to Jasmine French. She brought me into Girl Scouts of Central Indiana. She was on the board. Her board term was coming off. She messaged me. We sat down and had a meeting. She said, this would be great for you. She connected me to the board leader. Me and the board leader had a meeting, and then I joined the board.
Danielle Shockley. Was that
Danielle?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just say that is so important because that is the best board that I've ever been a part of. And that all came from, I wouldn't consider her my mentor. She was probably in that moment more of a sponsor, but at the same breath, that is someone that saw something in me and opened the door. And so those things, as far as like work-life balance, which I agree, I don't believe in the balance. It's more of like integration and just kind of like this seesaw, it's a toggle. So that's how I've kind of navigated that.
5-year plans. If you listen to the episode previous to this that's launching this week, it's with my good friend Latoya, and she was explaining that she had a 5-year plan that she was like very hardcore sticking to. But of course it didn't. She was going to be Oprah, the next Oprah. So that didn't work out, but she's doing other great things. So I'm curious, what's next for you? Not necessarily in a 5-year plan, but what are you thinking about doing? What's exciting you about what's next?
I think the first thing is I want to be really in value add in my work. And so whether that's kind of shrinking my work plan, so to be, instead of doing 5 things, doing 3 things. So that's something that I've really appreciated at Cummins in the last couple of years with our CMO, our leadership, is reevaluating work plans and getting very, very crisp and saying, in the past, we've kind of say, do all this valuable work. But then it's like all the things can't be priorities, right? The fact that you have a word priority means like it has to be very small and very thoughtful. And so the rule is no more than 3 things on your work plan. You can't do more than that in a year and go deep. So that has been intentional. We've been very focused on writing SMART goals, writing things that make sense. And then also IEP. So really being intentional about what are you pouring into yourself. I think I want to have, that's been my 5-year plan of more of a balance. I think Cummins supports you doing professional growth, but a part of your professional growth is personal growth. And I want to pour more into the personal growth side. So what does that mean? I'm finishing up a certification. I also want to volunteer more. So Cummins does triple EC hours, which is basically community service hours. They allow every employee to do 4 hours a year. And so I'm doing that on Wednesday. I'm really excited about that. And then the last thing is, I think, cross-functional learning. And so whether that's within Cummins or on the board. So I've been able to be a part of some really fun projects with some of the nonprofit boards I've been a part of. But then also I was on the marketing committee for the NBA All-Star that came here. So just having the opportunity to do some almost like immersive learning in my function outside of the walls of Cummins, I think has really opened my eyes to so many different career things moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, that's great. What advice would you give to somebody who's either young in their path and heading to college and considering a career in marketing, or somebody who wants to just do a full-on pivot? They were doing something over here and they really are considering a career in marketing. What advice would you give them?
I would say leverage being new. When you're always new, people are willing to support and give you guidance, probably more so if you're like super tenured. So I would say leverage the fact that you're new, ask the questions, do the programs, do the development programs, the rotational programs. It's okay to take a lateral move, do all of the things that will allow you to learn. And maybe you won't understand it in the moment, but just like some of the things I'm learning in my certification, I am taking notes. Let's just be honest. We got to go back to the fundamentals. Take notes, put it in a binder. You don't know how much you'll come back to that or how much you'll retain it later down the road. And so leverage being new in the development and the learnings that you'll have exposure to. And then the second thing I would say is, really take the time to thank your connections, thank your network. Gratitude and being thankful and verbalizing that to people goes a long way. Like people pouring into you. My mom always said, people don't have to do anything for you. They don't have to. Even if they're supposed to be your mentor, they can go further with a thank you and validating people's time. And so I would say just showing appreciation for those that have like taken the time to give you advice or having that coffee date. Write a thank you note, do something in the mail, send an email, like do something because, we're in a generation where we're, not humanizing things enough or moving fast. And it's so important for us to keep that connection and keeping that humanity of, I appreciate you. I need your help. I need your guidance to go far. So that would be my thing, because right now there's a lot of people, business professionals that are concerned about this next generation of workers that don't think that they're serious, that don't think that they have good business acumen or professionalism. And that is an element of being professional, is saying thank you, following up, doing all those things. So that's what I would say.
That's great advice. One of the common themes we've heard through every episode on the show is about your network or your personal board of directors, as a few people have called it, and just the importance of that. Because you mentioned sponsorship earlier, and I just think that that's so critical, because the farther up you go in your career, it's less about landing a job because you've applied and they found your resume through a Boolean search in their HRIS system. It is so much about who you know, the connectors you have in your life, the opportunities. I think also, for those that mentor you, but also to kind of give back and you put, say their name in rooms that they're not in too, to kind of help elevate them as well. It's kind of like giving back to the people that are giving to you and pouring into you. So I think that's really good advice. Hollin, any parting words? I just love this time with you. I'm really appreciative, and you've given such great advice. Anything you'd like to share before we close out today?
For those that are listening, at the end of the day, your work matters, but you matter more. And so make sure whatever you're doing, make sure your wellness, your health is well. If you got to go stand outside, get some fresh air, do what you need to do to be well. We have a couple more months left of the year. So not only is a year short, life is shorter. So just have at it. Make sure you're well.
I love that. Thank you, Hollin. Hollin, thank you so much for being on the show. We love Hollin. Appreciate your time. Talk to you soon, honey. Thanks for tuning in to The People of Work. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow along and share it with someone who'd love these stories too. Do you or someone you know have a unique job or an inspiring work journey? I'd love to hear about it. You can find me on Instagram at The People of Work or visit thepeopleofwork.com. And if you're navigating a career transition or just need support in your work life, I'm here for that too. From personal coaching to leadership and HR consulting, I'd love to help. Head to thepeopleofwork.com to learn more and get in touch. Until next time, thanks for being a part of The People of Work.